You're just a useless woman who married for money. Why don't you stay locked up in there forever? Rachel, stop it. This prank is going way too far, I yelled, trapped in the bathroom during the peak of summer. It was a scorching day, with temperatures over 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The house is old. And of course, there's no air conditioning in the bathroom. If I stayed locked up any longer, I could end up with heat stroke. But Rachel, my stepdaughter, didn't care about what I said, and simply walked away. At that moment, I swore I'd get back at her. My name is Ashley, and I'm 47 years old, just an average housewife. Right now, I live with my husband, Stephen, who's 2 years younger than me, and his children, Rachel and Matthew, in a suburban home. The house originally belonged to Stephen's grandparents, and when his parents passed away, he inherited it. It's an older house, but spacious enough for the four of us. Apparently, Stephen's family used to be fairly well off. We got married 10 years ago when Rachel was 5 and Matthew was 2. That's right. I'm not their biological mother. They're Stephen's stepchildren. I first met Stephen about 11 years ago at a meeting. At that time, we worked in different departments, but we were both employees at the same company. Stephen joined a project that I was leading. That meeting was the first time I really got to know him, but honestly, my first impression of him wasn't very good. During meetings, Stephen only spoke when it was absolutely necessary, and as soon as his work was done, he went straight home. He never stayed late, and barely communicated with his coworkers. Even when someone invited him out for drinks after work, he always declined. Because of this, most of the project members thought of him as unsociable and unmotivated, and they kept their distance from him. As far as I could tell, no one was openly hostile toward him, but there weren't many people who liked him either. In fact, I myself wished he would show a bit more cooperation. As a project leader, I valued the team's sense of unity. Hey Stephen, great job today. Your presentation was really well done. You put it together so thoroughly in such a short time. Thank you. So we're all going out for drinks tonight to celebrate. It'd be great if you could join us. Most of the team will be there. Thanks, but I'll pass. Driven by a sense of duty, I made a conscious effort to communicate with Stephen. I invited him out for drinks several times, but his response was always the same. Still, I kept talking to him persistently. However, until the end of the project, he never really opened up to me. Even after our successful, large-scale project, he didn't attend the celebration party. Some of the team members said it was rude, and I felt a little irritated myself. He could have joined us just this once, I thought. The day after the party, I casually greeted Stephen at work. I didn't mean to criticize him, but my tone ended up sounding that way. Good morning, Stephen. The party last night was really fun. It's too bad not everyone could be there, especially since it was our last chance to all get together. Good morning. I'm sorry for always declining. I have to get home early to take care of my kids. Stephen seemed surprised by my words, his eyes widening slightly, and he spoke hesitantly. He must have caught the hint of sarcasm in my comment. On the other hand, I was taken aback by his response. Before I knew it, I was bombarding him with questions. Wait, you have kids. Stephen, are you married? What about your wife? Does she work, too? No, my wife passed away. I'm raising the kids on my own. Both of my parents died young as well, and I don't have any relatives or friends I can rely on. So I have to leave work on time to pick them up from daycare. Looking back, I realize how tactless and intrusive my questions were, even though I was his superior. There was no excuse for my behavior. Yet, Stephen didn't seem particularly upset. He quietly explained his situation. That was the moment I learned that Stephen was a single father. At the time, he lived with his two children, 4-year-old Rachel and 1-year-old Matthew. Stephen's wife had passed away shortly after giving birth to Matthew. Since then, he'd been raising both kids on his own. I couldn't even begin to imagine how hard it must have been to work full-time while raising such young children. I had asked him the questions, but when I heard his answers, I found myself at a loss for words. I see, that must be really tough, especially with such young kids. No, I've gotten used to it by now. I'm sorry for pestering you about drinks when I didn't know your situation. If there's ever anything I can do to help, please let me know. Thank you. Stephen gave me a quiet smile in response to my words of sympathy. Looking at him, I couldn't help but imagine the loneliness and struggles hidden behind that smile. After learning about his circumstances, I started seeing Stephen in a different light. Even after the project ended, I noticed that he always looked a little tired whenever I saw him around the office. Despite that, Stephen remained calm and never let his work performance slip. If I were in his position, I don't think I'd be able to balance work and parenting like he did. As I thought about this, I began to feel a deep respect for him. I also felt a bit ashamed for having judged him so superficially before. From then on, my view of Stephen gradually changed. When we worked together again on another project, he still avoided social gatherings, but in the team, he became someone I could really rely on. Every time we discussed ideas in meetings, his calm analysis and sharp advice were invaluable to me. At first, I had thought of him as unsociable and quiet, but I realized he had a strong sense of responsibility. I also saw him as a caring father, determined to protect his children. As we talked more, we started to discuss not just work, but personal topics as well. Every day when I get home, I have to switch from work mode to dad mode right away. It's not easy, Stephen said with a smile one day. He said it casually, but there was a hint of loneliness in his expression, and I could sense the weight of the responsibilities he carried. Here he was, working so hard under such difficult circumstances, and all I had seen was someone who wasn't social. The more I learned about the struggles Stephen faced as a single father, the more I found myself drawn to him. Not only was I impressed by his work ethic, but I was deeply moved by the challenges he faced raising two children. It didn't take long for Stephen to become more than just a colleague to me. He became someone special. Before I knew it, I wanted to be there to support him. I began to imagine a future with him by my side. And so, 10 years ago, we got married. Some of my friends were skeptical about my decision to marry Stephen, given that he already had children. I was even advised not to go through with it, being told that it would be too difficult, that I'd end up struggling. But my resolve never wavered. Surrounded by well-wishers, I happily became Stephen's wife. With our marriage, I became a mother to two children, Rachel and Matthew. I had already made up my mind to pour as much love as I could into Stephen's children. Rachel and Matthew had lost their mother at a young age. Even though we went through the legal process of adoption, there was no genetic connection between us. To them, I was a mother figure, but in reality, I was still a stranger. Because of that, I knew I might never fully be their mom, but I wanted to be someone they could feel safe with. I even gave up my previous career and took on a more flexible job that allowed me to spend more time with Rachel and Matthew. I studied nutrition, took up sewing and cooking, and did everything I could think of to support them. Perhaps because of these efforts, by the time a year had passed since our marriage, I felt like I had started to bond with the children. It's been 10 years since I married Stephen, and we've gone through so many experiences together. At first, I struggled with adjusting to family life and found it difficult to navigate the distance between me and the kids. But over time, I've slowly built a bond with them in my own way. I still remember our first Christmas together as a family. We awkwardly exchanged gifts, Stephen and I glancing at each other. The kids were a bit confused since it was their first time doing this, but when I handed them their presents, they smiled and said, "Thank you." That smile became something special to me. There were other moments too, like the time we all went camping or watched fireworks as a family. And I can never forget the night I stayed up all night nursing Rachel when she was sick. Each of those memories is a treasure to me. However, things didn't always go smoothly. Building a relationship with Rachel, in particular, was a struggle. She held on to the deep pain of losing her mother and refused to open up to me. Still, I made an effort to show her love, taking things slow, step by step. I never missed any of her school events, and I was always there to offer support whenever she needed it. Even if she never expressed any gratitude, I continued to do whatever I could for her. I tried to figure out her favorite foods by observing her reactions, and made sure to include those in our meals. Rachel never openly sought affection, but the rare moments when she gave me a small smile became my emotional lifeline. Matthew, on the other hand, didn't have many memories of his mother, and warmed up to me quickly. His innocent smile and the way he called me mommy were my source of comfort. Watching him grow, helping him with his homework, reading him bedtime stories, it became a cherished part of my daily life. Sometimes we'd play together, and I'd cheer him on whenever he took on something new. I wanted to be someone who could help guide his future, to be someone he could rely on. I knew I might never truly be their mother, no matter how much I tried, but I loved them as much as I could throughout these 10 years of marriage to Stephen. I've done everything in my power to deepen the bond between us as a family. I don't know if they will ever accept that love, but I believe that one day they will understand how much I care. Then one day, a turning point came. Rachel hit her rebellious phase. It became one of the biggest challenges I'd faced. At first, I told myself it was natural for Rachel to struggle to open up to me. When we got married, Rachel was only 5 years old, and she had just lost her mother. I knew it would take time for her to accept me as her new mother figure, so I tried to respect her feelings and approached her at her own pace. But no matter how gently I treated her, it felt like Rachel's attitude only grew colder over time. When she entered middle school and reached adolescence, her defiance became even more noticeable. No matter how much I tried to talk to her, Rachel wouldn't make eye contact, and sometimes she would deliberately ignore me, even during family meals. She acted as if I didn't exist. When I kept trying to engage with her, she would respond with sharp, cutting remarks. "Rachel, are you enjoying school? It's fine." "Fine, that can't be all. Have you started preparing for the school festival yet? What does it matter? It's none of your business." Rachel shot me a quick glare and spat out her words coldly. It felt like a knife to my heart. I couldn't think of anything to say, so I just stayed quiet and let it pass. Stephen was struggling with how to deal with Rachel too. He understood how hard I was trying to be a mother figure for her, but neither of us knew the right way to handle our relationship with her. "Ashley, don't push yourself too hard. Rachel will calm down eventually." Stephen said that, but I had no idea how long eventually was supposed to be. I don't think even Stephen knew for sure. I kept wondering how I should approach Rachel. If I was too strict, I might push her further away. But if I continued to be gentle, it could feel suffocating for her. I just couldn't figure out how to be the right kind of mother for her. Still, I knew I couldn't give up. As a member of this family, I had to face Rachel. And for Stephen and Matthew's sake, we needed to build a stronger family bond. But being rejected by Rachel day after day was slowly wearing me down. No matter how hard I tried, her stubborn attitude wouldn't budge. There were times when I'd find myself tearing up in the kitchen while cooking dinner. It happened more than once or twice. The hardest part was when Rachel stopped calling me Mom. Matthew, still in elementary school, called me Mom and clung to me for affection. But at some point, Rachel stopped using that word. Even though I was doing my best to fulfill the role of a mother, I was still just a stranger in her eyes. Every time I realized that, it felt like my heart was being squeezed. Sometimes I wondered if I was failing as a mother. That fear crept into my mind from time to time. Stephen was always there to support me, but my relationship with Rachel never seemed to improve. No matter how much time passed, I couldn't reach her heart. But one day, a thought suddenly came to me. It was a memory from my own adolescence. Back then, I also had a strong sense of rebellion against my parents, feeling frustrated and lonely. Maybe Rachel was feeling the same way. Maybe she just didn't know how to handle the emotions swirling inside her. So I decided to take a step back and give her some space. I stopped forcing conversations and patiently waited for her to come to me when she was ready. I started telling myself that perhaps just being there for her, without pressure, was the best thing I could do right now. I had no choice but to trust that someday Rachel would open up to me. At least that's what I thought. But Rachel's defiance didn't stop at her cold attitude toward me. She started turning her harsh words on Matthew, hurting him right in front of me and Stephen. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, Rachel suddenly spoke, her face filled with annoyance. "Hey Matthew, did you know we're not really this woman's kids?" Rachel glared at me as she deliberately tried to provoke me. Matthew stopped eating and looked at her in shock. At 12 years old, he still didn't know that I wasn't his biological mother. Stephen and I had decided that we would tell him when he was older, when the time was right. Before I could say anything, Rachel continued, "And did you know that it's your fault Mom died?" "What?" "Yay. Because you were born, our real mom died. It's your fault I don't have a mom anymore. You shouldn't have been born." I gasped. "Rachel, stop." Stephen immediately cut in, his voice stern, but Rachel kept her gaze fixed on Matthew, continuing her cruel words. "Mom died, and you don't even feel anything, do you? You don't even remember her. But I do. I remember a little bit about our real mom. And this woman who came here to replace her isn't part of our family. But you just cling to her like it's nothing, Matthew. It's pathetic." Rachel's words froze the air in the room. Tears welled up in Matthew's eyes as he stammered, his voice trembling. "I didn't know, but my mom is still my mom. Right, Mom?" "Of course, Matthew. I've always been your mother." I quickly put my hand on his shoulder and reassured him, but I didn't know if my words could truly comfort him. Rachel's words were like knives, cutting deeply into his heart. At that moment, I realized I couldn't let Rachel continue down this path. She was clearly still grieving the loss of her mother and dealing with her resentment toward me, but that didn't give her the right to hurt Matthew. "Rachel, go to your room." Stephen sighed deeply as he gave the order. Rachel stood up, looking frustrated, and slammed the door behind her as she stormed off to her room. In the dining room, only the sound of Matthew's quiet sobs and an overwhelming sense of helplessness remained. At that moment, I felt like I was being forced to reconsider what it meant to be a family. I still didn't have an answer for how I should face Rachel, but I knew I had to keep giving love and patience to everyone in this family. I kept telling myself this, but then something happened that shook my resolve. Rachel's harassment started with small things. When she saw I was home, she would sigh loudly or slam the doors. Sometimes, she wouldn't even take a bite of the dinner I made, and would coldly say, "There's no way I'm eating this." At first, I'd tried hard to remind myself that it was just typical teenage rebellion, and I tried to stay calm. But her behavior gradually escalated. One day, I went to deliver some laundry to Rachel's room. I knocked on the door, but there was no answer. As I gently opened the door to leave the laundry inside, Rachel suddenly appeared behind me and shouted, "Don't come in here without permission." As she grabbed my arm tightly, her eyes were filled with anger, and for a moment, I couldn't understand what had just happened. She shoved me aside and stormed into her room, yelling, "Stay away from my room." "Okay, I'll just leave the laundry here," I said, trying to stay composed. But inside, I was deeply shaken. All I could do was quietly leave, trying not to provoke her further. From that point on, Rachel's harassment visibly worsened. For example, she would deliberately put freshly washed dishes back in the sink so I would have to wash them again. She would put tissues in the laundry to ruin the washed clothes. She even flooded the hallway outside my room. It was childish harassment. It seemed like Rachel was deliberately adding to my chores and enjoying watching me scramble around in response. The most painful moment, however, came one evening during dinner. As usual, I had prepared a meal for the entire family, and we sat down at the table, Stephen, Matthew, and I. But as soon as Rachel sat down, she glanced at the food and said, "This looks disgusting. It's not worth eating." Then she picked up her plate and dumped the food straight into the trash. "Rachel, what are you doing? Why would I eat food made by a stranger? There's no way I can trust it." Stephen scolded her sternly, but she responded with indifference and walked back to her room. I nearly broke down in tears, but I forced a smile and said to Stephen and Matthew, "Let's eat." But inside, my heart felt unbearably heavy. No matter how much effort I put in, I couldn't reach Rachel's heart, and her harassment kept escalating. Stephen wasn't sure how to handle the situation either, but in front of him, I kept pretending to be strong. The most terrifying incident happened just a few days later. I was cleaning the house when I suddenly needed to use the bathroom. After a few moments, I heard a loud noise outside. Curious, I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. Confused, I tried again, but it still wouldn't open. I pressed my ear to the door and could hear Rachel's laughter from the other side. She had locked me in the bathroom. "Rachel, open the door. Why don't you just stay in there forever? Rachel, stop this. This prank is going too far," I shouted, my voice rising in frustration. That day, the temperature was over 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The house was old. And of course, there was no air conditioning in the bathroom. If I stayed trapped in there, I could suffer from heat stroke. But Rachel showed no remorse and kept speaking without a hint of guilt. "You're just a useless woman who married a rich man. A poor woman like you has no right to pretend to be a mother. Get out of this house. If you get a divorce and leave now, I'll let you out. If not, you can stay in there until Dad gets home and think about it." "Rachel, what are you talking about? Stephen won't be home until the evening. I'll get heat stroke in here." I pounded on the door as I yelled, but her laughter faded as she walked away. She probably went back to her room. Maybe she even left the house. As I sat in the bathroom, feeling overwhelmed with anxiety, I heard Matthew's voice from outside. "Mom, are you okay? I'll help you out." When Matthew came home from playing and found me, I couldn't hold back my tears. Rachel, scolded by Matthew, gave a mocking apology, but there wasn't a hint of remorse in her eyes. I could no longer suppress my anger. Locked in the bathroom, hearing her laughter from outside, I realized that there was no need to endure this any longer. I had tried again and again to be kind to her, but all my efforts had been in vain. In fact, her attempts to hurt me had only escalated. There was no reason to keep sacrificing myself. I decided to talk to Stephen and take action. The day after I was locked in the bathroom, I took care of some matters during the day, and that evening, I visited Rachel's room and told her calmly, "I canceled your piano lessons and tutoring today." Rachel stared at me in silence for a moment, as if she didn't understand what I had just said. "What? What do you mean?" Rachel asked irritably. I continued calmly, "I never told you this, but I've been paying for your tuition and all your extracurricular activities, but there's no reason for me to continue doing that. I've also canceled your smartphone, so it will stop working next month. Everything I've ever bought for you, I'm selling. Your computer, your electronic dictionary, your piano, your textbooks, everything. From now on, you'll have to figure things out yourself or ask Stephen." "What? Wait a minute." At that moment, Rachel's face turned to one of shock. She had no idea that I had been financially supporting her. She didn't realize how much I had been paying every month, or how much effort I had put into securing her future. "You mean you've been paying for my tuition and everything? Isn't Dad the one supporting the family? We're rich, and you just married him for his money." Rachel looked at me in disbelief, but I calmly looked back at her and replied, "You seem to be mistaken. This family isn't rich at all. With just Stephen's income, we're barely covering the maintenance costs of this house. I'm an executive at my company, so yes, I've had enough financial stability to pay for your tuition and all the things you wanted, but there's no need for me to do that anymore. It seems you don't need me." Rachel's face showed a complex expression that I had never seen before. It seemed to be a mixture of anger, confusion, and perhaps even a bit of regret, but she couldn't say anything. For the first time, she realized that everything she had taken for granted had been sustained by me. After a moment of silence, Rachel asked in a trembling voice, "So what am I supposed to do now?" "Figure it out for yourself. You're old enough now. You can get by without me. Talk to Stephen and decide what to do." Rachel opened her mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. She just stared at me, confused. I quietly left the room, but inside, my emotions were in turmoil. I had tried so hard to fulfill my responsibility as Rachel's mother, but it never reached her. I finally realized that I didn't have to carry everything on my own. I'm only human, and I have my limits. Even within a family, there's no reason to endure endless hurt. Shortly after, Stephen and I decided to divorce and live separately. It was the conclusion we reached after many discussions. My relationship with Rachel had become irreparably strained, and it was starting to affect Matthew. No matter how hard I tried to keep the balance in the family, Rachel's defiance and cruelty wouldn't stop, especially the harsh words she directed at Matthew. They were something I couldn't ignore. We decided that living together as a family was no longer bringing anyone happiness. After the divorce, Rachel stayed with Stephen, and Matthew lived with me. Rachel's presence in the house had caused Matthew stress and anxiety, and living separately was the only way to relieve that. I decided to dissolve my adoption of Rachel and cut all my financial obligations to her. As a result, my support ceased, and Rachel's life changed dramatically. She had originally hoped to attend a private high school, but with only Steven's income, there was no way to afford the tuition. She could no longer attend her tutoring classes, and in the end, she had no choice but to attend a lower-ranked public high school. For someone as proud as Rachel, this must have been a major setback. On the other hand, Matthew's life also changed significantly after the divorce. He was freed from Rachel's influence and was finally able to live in a peaceful environment. He successfully passed his middle school entrance exams and was able to attend a prestigious private middle school. At his new school, he enjoyed spending time with friends every day and was thriving in his studies. Every time I saw his smiling face, I knew that my decision to divorce was the right one. However, a few months after the divorce, Rachel suddenly called me. When I saw her name on the screen, I felt a knot in my chest. She had never contacted me before, so what could she want now? I had a bad feeling, but I couldn't just ignore it. With a sigh, I answered the call. On the other end was Rachel's voice, sounding desperate. "What do you want?" "I need money." Her voice was different from the usual defiant tone. It was weak, almost pleading. Feeling suspicious, I responded, "Money? Why are you asking me for that?" Rachel hesitated for a moment before continuing. "I haven't been able to go to tutoring, and my grades are dropping. I wanted to go to a private high school, but with Dad's income, it's impossible. Please, just a little help." I couldn't speak for a while. I understood Rachel's frustration, but I still couldn't bring myself to grant her request. "Rachel, we're not family anymore. I've dissolved the adoption, and I don't owe you anything. I explained that to you, didn't I? But you used to help me. Dad is struggling too. Can't you help just a little?" Rachel pleaded frantically, but I shook my head. That was in the past. I did a lot for you. But what about you? You hurt me and Matthew over and over again. I treated you and Matthew equally, but you never once showed any gratitude for that. Rachel didn't respond to my words and stayed silent. I continued, "It's ridiculous to come to me for help now. You need to figure this out yourself. Talk to Steven and work within what you can. There's nothing I can do anymore." "Don't say that, please. Can't you help me? Just this once. I'm sorry, I've been thinking about everything. I'm really struggling." Rachel's voice had turned into a half-sob, but her desperation didn't move me. "Rachel, stop. I'm not your mother anymore. I have no obligation or responsibility to support your life. Accept that reality and grow up." Rachel said nothing, only quietly sobbing. After a moment, she whispered, "Okay," in a hoarse voice, and the call ended. After hanging up the phone, I stood there for a while. Rachel's crying echoed in my mind, but I told myself that this was for the best. Rachel's future was now up to her and Steven, but as far as I was concerned, my role was over. From now on, I would focus on building a new life with Matthew, making sure he has the support to create a bright future.
Don't live luxuriously on your husband's money. The comment from my mother-in-law Wendy freezes the atmosphere at the 60th birthday celebration I organized for my mom. In the midst of this, "All right, let's split the bill then," my usually calm mom says. Wendy looks stunned and lets out a confused, "Huh?" My name is Layla, and I'm 37 years old. I quit my full-time job when I got married 2 years ago and now work part-time while supporting my husband, Walker. Life was great until last month when we started living with Wendy. The reason? My father-in-law passed away. He died of cancer 3 months ago, leaving Wendy to live alone. Wendy felt scared and lonely living by herself, so we moved into Walker's family home. Before we got married, Walker had told me, I'm an only child, so I'll have to take care of my parents. I want to be there for them, especially if they need caregiving. Wendy is a kind person, so I agreed to live with her in the future, even offering to help with caregiving. She never interfered in our marriage, and she was a great homemaker when my father-in-law was alive. I respected her and thought I was lucky to have such a good mother-in-law. So, we started living together earlier than planned, and I was looking forward to a happy life as a family of 3. But I never expected Wendy to turn out the way she did. A month into living together, we started to feel more comfortable around each other. Hey Layla, I want to eat hamburgers for dinner tonight. Can you make some? I often get dinner requests like this. Sure, let's have hamburgers for dinner tonight. Some mothers-in-law apparently won't eat anything their daughters-in-law cook, but Wendy enjoys my cooking. She never complains about my cleaning or laundry either, making it easy for me to manage the household. I'm really glad we're living together, Layla. She even says, making me feel fulfilled. It makes me happy to be praised by someone I respect. However, I sometimes wonder why Wendy doesn't do any housework. She praises me, but never lifts a finger herself. She leaves her dishes in the sink and doesn't even take her trash out. It's like living with a traditional dad. On top of that, if you eat sweets, leave the garbage on the spot. When I clean, I find crumbs everywhere, presumably from snacks Wendy has eaten. Wendy lives on the inheritance and survivor benefits from my late father-in-law. Walker gave all the inheritance to Wendy, saying, "My mom put up with my dad's whims all her life." I didn't quite understand, but it's not my place to get involved in their financial matters. As long as they're both okay with it, I thought it was fine. But when Wendy spends her days doing nothing, living off my late father-in-law's inheritance and survivor benefits, it starts to bother me. I wish she'd at least clean up after herself. She used to be so good at housework when my father-in-law was alive. Why has she become so careless now? Curious, I gently ask Wendy about it. My husband was a very strict man, and I couldn't defy him. Now that he's gone, I'm finally free. It turns out my father-in-law was a henpecked husband, and Wendy felt she couldn't go against him. I remember how he used to sit still during meals, ordering Wendy around. Was that what it was? Now I understand what Walker meant. And I can't help but feel sorry for Wendy. I'll take care of the housework from now on, I decide, considering Wendy's feelings. But then, Wendy starts making more and more demands. Can you take a day off from your part-time job today? I want you to drive me to my friend's place. I can't take a day off. I firmly decline. And then she says, "Is your pocket money that important to you?" Excuse me? I can't believe what I'm hearing. Spending money. I work part-time for the family, not for pocket money. Considering we've just started living together and will continue to do so, I don't voice my complaints. Hey, we're out of milk. Can you go buy some now? I can't start my day without milk. Can't you see I'm about to leave for work? If you hurry, you won't be late. Hey Layla, my trash can is full. Take it out, and while you're at it, vacuum and mop my room. It's getting dirty. Wendy starts taking advantage of my willingness to do housework without complaining. This is too much. I gently tell Wendy what I can't do. I'm telling you to do it, so do it. Why can't you? She gets furious. I'm at my wit's end. And decide to consult Walker. Seriously? I'm sorry. Walker apologizes and immediately scolds Wendy. Mom, you should take care of yourself. Unlike Layla, who works part-time, you're home all day. But Wendy just brushes it off. Yeah, I get it. She clearly doesn't. I start to feel uneasy about this living arrangement. Walker seems to sense my feelings. I'll take care of Mom as much as I can. If there's anything I can do, just let me know. I feel relieved by Walker's words. And true to his word, Walker starts dealing with Wendy's whims. But Wendy isn't happy about it.
Why is Walker doing this? Layla, as his wife, you should be the one doing these things. Walker is the breadwinner, and you're just a part-timer. You think it's okay to make a tired Walker do this? Come on, Layla, wash my dishes right now.
At this, Walker is furious.
Hey, Mom. Stop making Layla do everything. If you're going to talk like that, shouldn't you, who does nothing all day, be the one doing the housework?
He has a point. But Wendy is angered by Walker's words.
What are you talking about? Your father always told me, a wife must take care of the family, a wife must obey her husband. Now that he's gone, I'm not anyone's wife, and I'm the head of this household. That means Layla, as your wife, should be taking care of me.
Is Wendy still bound by my father-in-law's words? I can't hold back and argue with her.
Wendy, times have changed. These days, no one thinks that way about wives and husbands. You need to change your mindset.
Walker nods in agreement. But Wendy's face turns red with anger.
What are you saying? Are you calling me outdated? How dare you, as a wife, say such terrible things to me?
I'm shocked. Then Wendy continues to vent her anger at me.
The only reason I taught you how to do housework was so you could do it all when we lived together. I agreed to live with you because I wanted an easier life after all the hardships I've endured.
Even Walker is surprised by her revelation.
Look, I get that you've had it tough, Mom, but it's not okay to treat Layla like a slave. And it's not okay to move in with us for such a selfish reason.
Exactly. Wendy has no comeback.
Enough! I'm disappointed that you're siding with her over your own mother.
She storms off to her room and slams the door. Walker and I sigh. Layla, I'm really sorry. You don't want to live like this, do you? I nod slightly. Then comes a surprising suggestion. Should we stop living together?
What?
I never thought he'd suggest that. I didn't expect Mom to become so selfish after Dad passed away. But we can't keep living like this. Let's move. I'm happy to hear this. But moving now is a concern. In fact, my mom's 60th birthday celebration is just around the corner, and I'm the one organizing it. I've just bought an expensive gift for her, wanting to give something special back to the woman who raised me. Moving would be another big expense. When I mention this, Walker also looks troubled. Plus, we've just moved here, and Walker's savings have taken a hit. Moving now would be difficult. But we can't put up with Wendy anymore. We ponder what to do but can't find an answer. In the end, we put the moving idea on hold. And so, we continue to endure Wendy's whims and clashes. The stress is piling up, and we're both exhausted. In the midst of this, my mom's 60th birthday celebration is approaching.
It's next month, huh?
As Walker and I discuss the celebration, Wendy joins the conversation.
What's happening next month?
We proceed to explain.
So, please have dinner alone that day. I'll prepare the meal for you.
When I said that, Wendy, as usual, made a selfish demand.
I'm coming too! You're coming too?
I couldn't understand why Wendy, who had only met my mom a few times, would say that. Walker seemed to feel the same and asked her, a bit annoyed.
Hey, why would you come, Mom? It's for Layla's mom's 60th birthday celebration.
Then came an incomprehensible reply.
Well, I never got a 60th birthday celebration from Layla. So, you should celebrate me too. What?
Neither of us could make sense of it. Wendy is 63, and when we first met, she was already past 60. Yet, she's demanding a celebration? Walker couldn't understand her logic either and kept arguing.
This is ridiculous.
But Wendy wouldn't budge, insisting.
I'm going. Celebrate me too.
So, they kept arguing. This was getting nowhere.
Fine. If my mom agrees, then Wendy can come too.
I called my mom.
Would it be okay if Walker's mom also joins the 60th birthday celebration?
My mom graciously said.
Sure. Yay! Then I'm coming to the 60th birthday celebration. Ugh.
This is turning into a hassle. Walker and I exchanged glances, both probably thinking the same thing. But we had no idea what was coming. Little did we know that Wendy's selfishness would escalate even more on this particular day. On the day of the 60th birthday celebration. We headed to my parents' house by train. Why are we taking the train, Layla? What happened to the car? I hate trains. My mom loves her alcohol. And the plan was for everyone to drink. That's why we couldn't drive. When I explained, Wendy looked displeased.
Well, you could just abstain from drinking, Layla. I'll drink your share too. So get off the train now and go rent a car.
I can't do that. My mom is looking forward to drinking with me, I said, refusing her demand. She kept grumbling. It's not like the train ride was that long. It's only about 20 minutes from our house to my parents'. Despite feeling embarrassed by her loud complaints on the train, Walker and I finally arrived at my parents' home. We were greeted by my mom, who then said hello to Wendy.
Layla is always in your care. I hope she's not causing any trouble.
Wendy laughed and responded in a way that was completely out of line. Ha ha ha. She's always a handful. She does the housework I've taught her, but she's so busy trying to make extra money that she sometimes doesn't listen. But hey, she's the wife Walker brought home. Walker immediately scolded Wendy.
Mom, what are you saying?
My mom and I were stunned. Ignoring that she wasn't even a family member, Wendy led the way into the house.
You're having a hard time living with her, aren't you?
My mom whispered this to me so Wendy couldn't hear. I could only respond with a wry smile. When we got to the living room, the catering we had ordered was already there. I had told my mom,
You don't have to do any of the serving or cleaning.
So Walker and I started setting the table.
Why are you making Walker do this? You should do it yourself.
I couldn't believe she would say something like that here, too. Walker was visibly frustrated, while my mom quietly observed. Wow, this looks delicious. I didn't expect to eat such a feast. I'm glad I came all this way for this 60th birthday celebration. She's a guest in someone else's home, yet she acts like this. Does she have no common sense? The celebration began with a toast. My own father passed away 4 years ago. Wendy used that as a topic to steer the conversation. Your husband passed away too, right? Isn't life great living off the inheritance and survivor's pension? I've been having a blast since my dad passed. I couldn't believe she could bring up such a topic so casually. I ate my meal with a strained face. Every time Wendy said something inappropriate, Walker would step in, saying,
"Stop it, Mom!"
He looked exhausted. We both regretted bringing her along, to say the least. For the record, my mom works and doesn't rely on my dad's inheritance or survivor's pension. She seemed taken aback by Wendy's comments, too. Then the topic shifted to the catering I had ordered.
"So, this is delicious, but how much did it cost? Was it expensive? Like $200 or $300?
Another tone-deaf comment. Just as I was getting fed up, Wendy suddenly became angry.
You know, it's fine to celebrate your mom's 60th birthday, but doing it with Walker's money isn't right. Use your own spending money."
What is she talking about all of a sudden? I paid for this catering from my own part-time job earnings. But Wendy wouldn't listen.
"You can't possibly afford such an expensive meal on your measly salary."
She even went as far as to say that.
"Don't be so cheeky, spending your husband's money like that."
Why would she say such a thing during my mom's 60th birthday celebration? I deeply regret bringing Wendy along. I can't forgive her for creating this atmosphere. I was about to lose my patience and tell Wendy off when, at that moment.
"All right, let's go Dutch then. We'll split it 4 ways. How does that sound?"
It was my mom who spoke.
"What?"
Everyone was shocked. My mom, who had stayed silent every time Wendy made an outrageous comment, was now suggesting this.
"Wait, what are you saying? Going Dutch on a 60th birthday celebration? That's absurd."
Wendy was rattled by my mom's words. In response, my mom spoke confidently.
"Layla has explained multiple times that she paid for this with her own money, right? But Wendy, you wouldn't accept that, insisting it must be Walker's money. So, I thought going Dutch would settle this."
Wendy was speechless. My mom continued.
"Oh, and Wendy, please pay with your own money, not the money left by your late husband." At this, Wendy became furious. "What? Why do I have to be told that by you?"
Facing Wendy's red-faced, loud outburst, my mom responded calmly.
"Well, you did say, don't indulge in luxuries with your husband's money, didn't you? So, it would be wrong to use your late husband's inheritance, right?"
Fair point. Wendy had nothing to say. But she was so furious that she started to say something ridiculous.
"Well, it's fine for me. But not for Layla. Because Layla is using my precious Walker's hard-earned money. If a wife spends it carelessly, of course a parent would get angry."
She's talking nonsense. Walker and I exchanged incredulous glances.
"I get it, I really do. I'm angry too. I'm frustrated that my dear daughter is being unfairly scolded by Wendy."
At this, Wendy seemed at a loss for words, struggling to come up with a retort.
Well, you see."
Stuttering and flustered, Wendy was silenced by my mom's next words.
"Initially, I was going to let it slide, watching you berate Layla. I didn't want to cause any issues in your future living arrangements. But enough is enough. You're the one living lavishly on your husband's money, and you dare tell my daughter not to do the same? Are you kidding me? How can you demean and belittle my daughter in front of me? What would you think if I did the same to Walker right now?"
Wendy was completely silenced. I never knew my mom could get this angry. Neither Walker nor I could hide our surprise. Wendy, now quiet, seemed regretful and teary-eyed. She grabbed Walker's hand and stood up.
"Walker, let's go! I can't stay here any longer."
For some reason, she tried to leave with Walker. Walker, of course, didn't go with her. He shook off her hand and snapped.
How selfish can you be, Mom? Enough is enough.
Wendy started to cry.
What now? Even you, Walker? Everyone's treating me like the villain. I was thinking of you when.
Before she could finish, Walker shouted.
Cut the crap. What's for my sake? Apologize to Layla right now for ruining this 60th birthday celebration.
Wendy was visibly shaken by Walker's fury. He seemed so forceful that it looked like he might hit her. Perhaps because of that, Wendy complied meekly.
I'm really sorry. I truly apologize.
Wendy offered a heartfelt apology to me and my mom. After all the times she had bossed me around, she was finally apologizing sincerely, so I thought about forgiving her. Yeah, right. I'm sorry, but I can't put up with Wendy's selfishness anymore. Ruining my mom's 60th birthday celebration made me realize that I can't live with this person any longer. Please, let's end this living arrangement. With the atmosphere already tense from my mom and Walker confronting Wendy, I unleashed my pent-up anger. That said, I never thought I'd be able to say all this to Wendy. Wendy was shocked when I suggested we should stop living together. She clung to me with a loud voice.
Please don't say we should part ways. I'm truly sorry. I messed up today, but from now on, I'll take care of myself.
It's too late for that now.
So, as you've said, take care of yourself. In your own home. Also, remember you mentioned not living large on my husband's money? Starting today, you'll need to find a part-time job and earn your own keep.
My point was, own up to what you say. Wendy was taken aback.
No, that was a mistake. I take it back. I didn't mean that part about not using my husband's money.
Walker chimed in, a touch of irony in his voice.
So, moving forward, Layla can do whatever she wants with my money, right?
Exactly.
Well,
Wendy was at a loss for words. I was on the verge of bursting into laughter. Everyone blamed her, and she was clearly out of options. Walker didn't hesitate to lay it out straight.
Stop depending on my dad's inheritance, Layla, and me. We'll separate our living arrangement, and Moem, you need to work.
Wendy kept repeating, impossible.
Look, Dad's inheritance isn't endless. One day it'll run out. Can you live on just survivor benefits and your own pension? You're not actually planning on depending on my salary, are you?
Wendy looked utterly confused.
How about working part-time at a subsidiary of my company?
Walker made a helpful suggestion. But Wendy kept hesitating, saying,
But, no. Then I can't help you. We'll move out soon and cut off all contact. Considering recent events and today, I think it's fair.
Wendy panicked at Walker's finality.
Fine. I get it. I'll do it. Just don't cut me off.
And that's how Wendy put an end to her freeloading life. So, the disastrous 60th birthday celebration came to an end. We all apologized to MOM and hurried home to start looking for a new place and packing. As soon as we found a new home, we moved. During this time, Wendy was noticeably more considerate, just like when we started living together. She even started helping with the chores. But that didn't mean we could continue living together.
Wendy, please reconsider.
I'd been saying no every time she asked, trying to make her reflect on her actions. It seemed Wendy was having regrets about her own behavior. Walker, my husband, had a proposal for her to work at his subsidiary company.
If you slack off or are late, I'll hear about it. Plus,
It's a subsidiary of the company where my son works. If you screw up, it'll reflect badly on me. He figured a reasonable mom would consider. Basically, Walker was taking control until Wendy couldn't mess up her life anymore. He's a tough cookie, I thought. Days later, Walker told Wendy, I spoke to the factory manager at the subsidiary. You have a job interview. With no escape, Wendy reluctantly went to the interview. She got the job and started working 5 days a week. Since she had been so lazy before, work seemed pretty hard, and she spent her days off sleeping. As Walker had suspected, her work ethic was quite diligent, lest she ruin her reputation and, by extension, his. Working 5 days a week made her too tired to make a mess at home, which helped keep the household in order. In the midst of all this, she confided, How long will I be stuck like this at my age? Living alone is lonely. If she hadn't been treating me like a slave, everyone could have been happily living by now. By the way, we had to redo the celebration for my mom's 60th birthday because Wendy had ruined it the first time around. It took some time to save up the money. Of course, Wendy wasn't there. When I proposed to my mom that we redo the 60th birthday celebration, she declined, saying,
I appreciate the thought, but it's too expensive. Your feelings are enough.
In that case, I said, and decided to prepare a nice meal at home. We had a delightful 60th birthday celebration redo. My mom was overjoyed, and Walker also celebrated with us.
Hey, Layla, you're not drinking? Well, actually.
That day, my mom saved me from the unpleasant Wendy. They say motherhood is a strength, and it's true. I'd been frustrated and stressed by Wendy, so this event reminded me of how great a mom can be. I want to be a mom who, no matter my age, cherishes her children just like mine does.